Reading Uni Weather.
Hi there. So as you may have noticed, weather conditions have been largely dry and settled, and this trend is set to continue for the rest of this week, all thanks to a region of high pressure dominating most of northern Europe. So as you can see from this chart, we have been receiving northeasterly winds, and if we trace those isobars all the way back, they originate from Eastern Europe, where recently we've seen some unseasonal snowfall. For the UK, we are sandwiched between the secluded front off to the southeast and this weather system off to the northwest. So for Thursday during the day, we'll have those fresh northeasterly winds just filtering in some thickening cloud and outbreaks of rain, maybe a few spots of rain for the Reading area. For the rest of the UK though, it'll be largely dry and settled, maybe a risk of a shower for the extreme northwestern parts of Scotland. Temperatures will be suppressed a bit by those cool northeasterly winds at around 13 degrees Celsius. So for Friday, we still have this lingering occluded front off to the southeast, and that's going to provide a few showers for the Reading area. But for the UK as a whole, largely dry and settled with variable amounts of cloud. We have the system off to the northwest, but that's not going to pose a risk for any unsettled weather. For Friday, we have a risk of light rain in the vicinity and temperatures of around 13 degrees Celsius. For Saturday and Sunday though, looks largely dry and settled, risk of some thicker cloud coming in, but temperatures of around 13 degrees Celsius. So a risk of a shower, but things still feeling fresh in that cool northeasterly wind. So I'm going to hand you over to Sam, who's going to talk about the Northern Lights.
Thanks for that, Jack. Unknown to many people in northern parts of the British Isles, there would have been a strange green glow on the northern horizon for 3 nights in a row last week. And no, this wasn't the beginning of an alien invasion, this was in fact the Aurora Borealis, or more commonly known as the Northern Lights. Now the Northern Lights are usually observed at much higher latitudes, in areas such as Iceland, northern Scandinavia and Alaska. So what I'm going to do is explain to you the unique set of solar events that led to the Aurora Borealis being visible from Britain's shorelines. So this rather impressive loop of the Sun here was taken by the Solar Dynamics Observatory, and it shows the Sun's atmosphere, which scientists refer to as the corona. Now the Sun emits charged particles in all directions, and this is known as the solar wind. And when it streams past Earth, it typically has a velocity of around about 300 kilometers per second. In last week's events, however, these velocities were recorded at around about 800 kilometers per second. And the reason for this is this dark region, which we can see transiting across the Sun's equator here, and this is known as a coronal hole. Now, as the solar wind attempts to escape the Sun's atmosphere, it has to navigate a series of complex and strong magnetic field lines, and typically these loop out of the Sun's surface and back in again, and this creates resistance. In the case of a coronal hole, these magnetic field lines expand straight out into space, and hence there's a lack of resistance and the higher velocities are able to be achieved. So let's have a look at how these charged particles are actually able to spark the Northern Lights. So the Earth itself has its own set of magnetic field lines, and this is known as the magnetosphere. And without the magnetosphere, life on Earth would be pretty much impossible, since the solar wind would strip away our own atmosphere, creating pretty hostile conditions at the Earth's surface. As the solar wind streams past the magnetosphere, it actually traps some of these particles and channels them down into the poles. And this interacts with atoms in the upper atmosphere and excites them, and this in turn gives off light, and this is what we observe as the aurora. Now the faster the solar wind, or the more dense the solar wind, the more bright the aurora is, and the further south the aurora oval expands in the northern hemisphere. And this is exactly what happened with last week's events. So let's have a look at some of the pictures from last week. This top one here was taken in the Lake District, and this bottom one here was taken in Westeros in Scotland. If you'd like to be informed of the next time there's a possibility of an aurora being visible from Britain's shorelines, then please follow us on Twitter or give us a like on Facebook at Reading Uni Weather. Thank you for listening.
Reading